This is Fowl Players Radio, your podcast for arts, entertainment, and pop culture. Welcome. My name is Michael Spedden, your host. Every episode features fun, fascinating stories about people in the performing arts, actors, authors, dancers, writers, musicians, athletes, you name it. Folks who are center stage, backstage, on camera, or behind the scenes. Sit back and listen. Let's have some fun. Fowl Players Radio is a proud production of the Fowl Players Group and the official podcast of the Fowl Players of Perryville.
Hi, this is Paul Castiglia, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio, the one-stop shop for all your pop culture needs.
Hi, this is Kim of Kim's Crypt, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
This is A.D. Adams, and you are tuned in to Fowl Players Radio with your host, Michael Spedden.
Yeah, hi, this is David Simmons from DC Star, and I am just encouraging all of you to tune in to Michael Spedden's show on Fowl Players Radio and love the rock and roll of the past and the art of the future.
Hello again, Michael Spedden from Fowl Players Radio here. If you grew up in the 70s and 80s in Baltimore, the name George Lewis should mean something to you. Does that name ring a bell, or maybe several bells? How many was it again for Batman? Well, if not, then perhaps the name Captain Chesapeake does. We've brought to our YouTube channel a very popular episode, Season 5, Episode 30, from July 2nd of 2020. That's right, in this episode, we're joined by his daughter, Tracy Lewis Collins, who tells us lots of great stories about Captain Chesapeake's many years in broadcasting, where it all began one day after the end of World War II, all the way through him and a few colleagues starting WBFF 45, a small independent television station, in 1971. They went on through the 80s, and they were bought by Fox in the late 1980s. Think of this story as UHF with Weird Al Yankovic, but in real life. You can enjoy this trip down memory lane with us, a beloved piece of Baltimore broadcasting history for sure. This can be found on www.fowlplayersradio.com, Season 5, Episode 30, or you can also tune into our YouTube channel and look for the episode there. Enjoy the story of this great icon of Baltimore broadcasting history. We hope you enjoy, and we'll see you soon.
WBFF TV Baltimore, Television 45.
A shipwrecked sailor found himself in a plight. Lost at sea, he was really a sight. He swam and swam till he thought he'd die, when a wondrous sight appeared to his eye. A derelict boat that saved his life and put an end to his watery strife. Strange friend in the Chesapeake Bay when Mondy the monster came along one day. There's excitement aplenty, their lives never dull, as they sail toward fun aboard the television hull.
Ahoy, crew members! Welcome aboard. Good to see you.
And welcome back to the quarantine edition of Fowl Players Radio. And we're back here with a very special guest. Today we're going to hear the story of a man I think we all know if you're from Baltimore. If you grew up in the Baltimore area, especially in the 70s and 80s, the name George Lewis should mean something to you. But maybe by not by that name, maybe not by the name George Lewis. I think the name we all remember more than that is Captain Chesapeake. Captain Chesapeake was the pretty much the host with the most on Channel 45 when we were growing up in the morning and after school, introducing all the cartoons and the Three Stooges, and he would have his puppet friends on there. And we were glad to have Tracy Lewis Collins, Mr. Captain Chesapeake's daughter, here today. Tracy, welcome to the show. Good to talk to you.
Ahoy. Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Tracy. I have to say, I've enjoyed, knowing you, and I've seen you at a few Captain C events over the years. But one thing I really have to say about you is that you have impeccable taste in music, and you know how I know that we we run into each other at all the same concerts. I think we've seen each other at
all the same concerts.
and I think we've run into each other at like UFO, Kicks. I know maybe at the Heritage Fair, seeing either Kicks or 38 Special, maybe. Yeah, and that's always a good time. So believe me, I knew I liked you just from your music and everything here. But you got some great stories to tell about your father here, and we're basically hearing the beginnings of Channel 45 up until I guess Fox took them over, pretty much with these stories here and the era that your father pretty much ran the station here. So how did all this? How did Mr. Lewis's story start in broadcasting? Tell us about that.
Well, it started long before 45. He didn't even imagine Channel 45 yet. Uh-huh. He had joined the service as everyone else did, but the war ended in boot camp. So he started college, and one day he left class and got in his car and kept on going and went up to East Coast and stopping at every radio station for a DJ job. And he found one in New Jersey where he settled for quite a while. And that's where he met my mother.
Okay.
He was the MC of a beauty contest, and she was in the beauty contest.
Okay.
And all the other women were giggling. They were all younger than he. And they were giggling, saying whoever gets the master of ceremonies. And Mom won.
She won. That's awesome.
Mom won. And I don't know how. He told her he would write a song for her the next day.
Okay.
But the way he did it, he said, "Now, this one goes out to you." So he had probably promised a couple hundred women that he was playing it for, because he didn't use any names.
Right.
And she was so excited that she went out and had Mrs. George A. Lewis stationery made at that point, and her parents laughed at her because she was 7 years younger.
Oh, okay. Wow, she really had a crush on him, Well, I gotta say, your father was a handsome man. He was a handsome man,
Yeah.
And I can see, I can see why, a girl would be taken with him, especially with him being, an on-the-air personality and the judge of the contest and everything. And she didn't waste any time setting her sights on him, though, huh?
Very gentlemanly. He always was very gentlemanly.
You told me that too.
Yeah.
And so she started, with the stationery, and she had her sights set on him and everything. So where do we go from there?
He said every time they went on a date, he said, "She's too young. I'm not calling her again." And for some reason, he did. And eventually, 4 years later, they got married.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, he got a job in Kentucky.
Okay.
Still in radio.
Right.
And that's when West Virginia offered him Mr. Cartoon on TV.
Mr. Cartoon.
Which is Mr. Cartoon. Oh, no, I'm wrong. I bet you could have corrected me. Steamboat Bill was first.
Steamboat Bill.
Steamboat Bill was first.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. Cartoon.
Right, Mr. Cartoon.
You probably knew that, didn't you?
I did. I knew that, but again,
it's my story.
That's right. It's your story. That's right. I'm going to let you go with it, Tracy. So what? And
he really was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. One of a moment with he and I that I always remembered, because he always did. We had gone to a furniture store, and he had walked away a little. Mm-hmm. And being a teenager, I got all snuggled up in one of the beds, which they frown upon in furniture stores. So the salesman walked over and kind of snarky. He said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Could you read me a story?" And I remember my dad laughed about that till the day he died, and so did the salesman. But we fished, and we did a lot together.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
And he made all 5 of us feel special.
Right.
You know?
Right.
We all thought we were the favorite.
Yeah, so when he started out as Mr. Cartoon, I guess sort of doing very similar things to what he did here on Channel 45, and
right.
He ended up getting, and so you were living in West Virginia for a number of years, and he was
17, yeah,
17 years, and then he was, you said the other character was not Mr. Cartoon, but the other one was Steamboat Bill. Did you say
Steamboat Bill?
Okay, and that a similar type of character to what he did in Baltimore?
Yes, and I was little. I know very little about it, which is why I almost forgot it.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about it. I have a jacket that he wore, and that was similar.
Right. Okay, and so then he comes to now. How did he get this opportunity with WBFF in Baltimore? Do you remember?
Well, my mother wanted to come back. They were both from Baltimore. Both of them were from Baltimore.
Okay.
And she really wanted to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow the station was wanting to start up and needed some people to start up. And he and Bill Fever and Ernie Boston and I believe one other all volunteered and just took this building and made it into the station. It was kind of like a warehouse at first.
Right, and that was... go ahead. I'm sorry, I stepped on you there.
Oh, that's okay. I wasn't... it just became Channel 45. And what was it? Was it 71 when they went on the air?
I believe it was 71, right around that time.
Yeah.
And... Yep, it's in 1971, but they actually had started working on the station earlier than that, correct?
Right, we moved in 69.
Okay. God, I could just imagine that being offered a job like that. This is, you have a TV station, make it happen. I'd be like, oh boy, here we go. That's got to be a dream job for so many people.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of picture in my head that Weird Al Yankovic movie. It was at UHF where he inherited that little station. And it was really up to him. And
well, they really were like that at first.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah, tell stories about Traffic Jam Jimmy, but he would be doing the voice of Moon Dan behind the camera, and it was live. So he'd make faces and give us the finger and do everything he could to try to make us fall off the boat.
Right.
Just trying to crack us up once the show got started.
Yeah. Now with so now when he started the Captain Chesapeake character, and I was just kind of doing some refresher research and everything here too. I didn't realize that the boat was named the TV Hull.
Thank you. A bunch of my friends and I couldn't remember either.
Yeah.
I remembered some of the final ones, and I knew that was one of the final ones, but we couldn't remember which one was picked. So you've helped me.
Yeah, the TV Hull, named after TV Hill, obviously.
Because
I can remember him always saying, to send in postcards and letters and your drawings and things like that he would show over the air. Always send it to WBFF TV Television Hill, Baltimore, Maryland 21211. That always stuck in my head, along with some of the. And I got to tell you one thing too. I don't know. Besides doing the show and everything, when people would put commercials on there, they had some of the greatest low-budget local commercials I could ever seen in my life on there. Did your father and that crew of guys he was working with there have anything to do with those, or were they produced elsewhere and just brought in?
Well, I know he did with some of them because we were in some of them.
Right. The ones that he was in.
So I know with some, but I don't know about,
Right.
all of it. I mean, I guess they chose them. But
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that people, brought them in, and I guess they bought the advertising space to put them on the air and everything. But one of my favorite ones of all time, and I just kind of revisited these not too long ago, was the Mr. Ray's hair weave commercials.
Yeah.
Weren't those the greatest?
They were. They were constant.
Nothing.
They had a big advertising budget, apparently.
They did. And I tell you what, the thing that I really thought was funny about that was, nothing personified Baltimore better than that guy's accent. I mean, I thought I had a Baltimore accent, but she's a whiz. I mean, this guy, I mean, that was definitely not a professional voiceover person coming in. That was definitely not the announcer voice there. That was Mr. Ray's hair weave. I mean, that was probably the mushiest Baltimore accent I'd ever heard in my life. And
that's like Jimmy and his sandwich.
Yeah, traffic jam Jimmy.
His sandwiches.
Yeah, he was another one. Moni the Sea Monster had that Baltimore drawl too. Now, was he actually inside of the Mondi costume, or was he was that another puppeteer?
No, somebody else. It didn't. It's just anybody got in there. It sounds like, the peons got in there. No, I didn't like that.
Right.
But just anybody could get in there, and he did the voice from behind the camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess it could have been anybody because his mouth didn't move.
Right.
Yeah. Now, how did they make Mondi?
They took 2 female mannequins and put them back to back and paper mache over them. Mm-hmm. Hence the bulgy eyes and the lumps on the back of the head.
Right.
Which, very simple but effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very simple and effective. And the horn, where did the horn come from? Was that just something that they decided to add?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess they would have needed something, on top of his head to make him look a little more sea monsterish and not just as an alligator.
Or 2 backward mannequins.
Yes. That's the truth. And then they had kind of that drape, hanging down over the person's body. So whoever wanted to go in there, or whoever got, Mondi duty for the day would be inside of the costume and everything. And then, you said the voice came from behind the cameras and everything. Now, what about Andy the Lion? Do you remember who that was?
I have him, and I've sewed and sewed. You could almost read a book to him. Mm-hmm. But when we have reunions at Waverly, where they serve the Captain C ale, I do bring him and Little Mo. I don't have Mondi.
Okay.
But I have Andy, and he's really been sewn up a lot. Had a lot of surgery.
I'm sure. And so there was Andy the Lion. He was the lion head. Basically, he was like a mounted head, like you would mount a deer's head, but he was a lion. He came out of the wall. And then there was the other one was Bruce the Bird, who you never saw, but he would just boo things, right?
Yeah, he was just a start out.
That was funny. Now there was a couple of other characters on the show too.
Little Mo.
There was Little Mo.
That was Mondi the Monster's nephew.
Oh, okay, nephew. Okay.
Yeah, now him I have.
Okay, yeah, you have Little Mo, and then there was Tracy the Treasure Chest.
Yes, that's where all your pictures and letters went. And I would love to have that, but I don't.
You don't. And who played that character? Who was that named after?
It didn't talk, did it?
I don't think so.
The treasure chest, no. It was just a really cool treasure chest.
But who was
I was a mermaid.
You were the mermaid, right. You were the mermaid.
Yeah, my sister and I both.
And
So she was Missy and I was Mandy.
oh, okay, okay.
And we did parades. We did one parade where the car behind us was Henry Winkler.
Oh, is that right? Is that right?
And Dad kept saying, "That's Henry Winkler." Well, we didn't watch TV. There was 5 of us on one TV.
Yeah.
So we're like, "So what?" He's like, "Go back there and meet him." And finally, we did. We had no idea who he was, though, because we didn't watch Happy Days.
Right. And that was a parade in Baltimore?
Yes, it was the I Am an American Day Parade.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure. I have a real old picture from it on my camera that actually a fan sent in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, the I'm an American. And I'm sure he probably had a lot of requests to do 4th of July parades or just about anything out there, to promote the station. And I bet those holidays ended up being just like extremely busy for you, because, I was in the band at Calvert Hall for a couple of years when I was there. And, the marching band at that time, it still is, like one of the top ones in the area. And we got asked to do like the Dundalk Parade, the Bel Air Parade, the Towson Parade, the Rosedale Parade back in those days. And you just like go from one to another. And it's just, they all kind of stagger the start times and everything to be able to get the people there. But I think I probably saw him in the Dundalk Parade a couple of times over the years too.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
And then he had a best friend, and a lot of people who hung out in Fells Point would know him from the cat side. One of his good friends looked just like Abe Lincoln.
Okay.
So they would love the St. Patty's Day parades and all. Or even more, they would love to find like a talk on Lincoln. And as the talk was going on, they'd poke their heads in. One time somebody fainted because this man, his name was Jeff Knapp, so a lot of people probably remember him. And one woman fainted.
Is that right?
She really thought Abe Lincoln was standing there with Captain Chesapeake at an Abe Lincoln speech. But they were good buddies.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so you're doing a lot of parades and appearances and everything like that. And from what you were telling me, too, your father was very approachable with people. Very approachable and very kind. He would talk to people a lot. I know you had a couple of stories about that you'd mentioned in the past, too.
Yeah, well, if he didn't have something to do on a holiday, he would just voluntarily go to the hospitals and see all the sick children.
Sure.
So I can remember thinking, it's not fair because I couldn't open my Christmas gifts till he came home.
Yeah, that's right.
Now I realize how selfish that was. But I was a kid.
Yeah, right. When you're little like that, when you're little and everything. And
they would knock on the door during dinner, and he'd get up and go out in the living room and tell a joke and give them pictures and autographs. He was never unkind to anyone.
Right. Well, that's a good thing, I mean, you can kind of tell that by doing that. I mean, that really shows me he took a lot of ownership of what he was doing too. It wasn't just a job for him. I mean, he was Channel 45 for all those years, and really took pride, really cared about the people, and just it seemed to me like he really valued everybody that he came across, that was a fan of the show.
Oh, he did. He did. He was very sensitive. If a spider died, he was upset. He really was. He really was like that. Our goldfish died, and he was upset.
Yeah.
And he would get invited to crew members' weddings, and he would go.
Is that right?
Yep. Weddings and rehearsal dinners, and he would tell Mom to get gussied up. They were going out.
That's wonderful. That people, people thought that much about him, and he was just that approachable of a person to do that.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned too that there's a local brewery in town, Waverly Brewers, or Waverly. Do I have
Brewery Company? Actually, it's Waverly Brewing Company.
Waverly Brewing Company, and what did they make?
They made a Captain C ale. And because of all this, we haven't had a reunion in ages. We were planning one when all this COVID stuff started.
Sure.
But in the summer they do a Monday one that's a little lighter.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what they're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
They did donate a keg to my mother's memorial for the wake afterwards.
Right.
Which I thought was very kind of them. They brought it. They came and got it.
Mm-hmm.
So when all this is over, I would like to have another reunion there.
Sure.
Because they've been very good to us. And I know there's a place called Diablo Donuts that has a donut, which I haven't tried, but my daughter has.
Oh, okay.
Have you tried it?
I haven't yet. I did like the Captain C Ale, though. I've had that before.
Yeah, it's way stronger than you think, though.
Yeah. That's why I
the
like it.
donut is caramel and Old Bay.
Is that right? Caramel and Old Bay, huh?
Yeah, I can't imagine it, but apparently people like it.
Well, after a few Captain C Ales, you switch over to that one, and it's okay.
Here's a good idea.
Yeah.
But don't fall off the TV off.
That's right. That's right. But Channel 45. I mean, that was some of my favorite TV growing up. I mean, not only did we have Captain Chesapeake, and we had there was another show that your father hosted late at night on weekends. Ghost Host, and he was the actual ghost host, wasn't he?
Most people didn't put that together, that it was the same person.
Right. Well, he had a different costume on, too. He had kind of a beard and a wig, and he was kind of in the shadows and everything, but...
Yeah,
and so he was the host of that, too. Kind of the precursor to Svengoolie, in a way,
yeah.
And, I guess Elvira and all those were around back then, but, yeah, he was definitely, his own guy with that, too. And I enjoyed shows like that back in those days. You would stay up late and watch it, and you watch those old horror movies and everything. And I love those old movies. Sometimes you look at them and the special effects are a little off, especially compared to all the.
That's part of the fun.
It really is. It really is. And truthfully, when you're watching those movies, sometimes I was just watching. This past weekend on Turner Classic Movies, they had both Clash of the Titans and from '81, and then before that they had the 7 Voyages of Sinbad the Sailor, and they had like the stop motion monsters in them and everything, and you know what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
Well, almost like King Kong from the 30s,
right.
And but the thing is, with that animation, for some reason, for a split second there, they achieve what they call the with suspension of disbelief. You're actually watching this, you're like, whoa, you better watch out. Here comes King Kong. Wait a minute, that's a Play-Doh ape. What the hell is he scared of? But there was something about those movies, and a lot of the old. I don't know if you are a big fan of horror movies, but another.
I am.
Do you remember the Hammer movies that were made in England? In the 50s through the early 70s.
I don't think so.
You might, if you saw some of them, you would probably remember. You may not know that they were Hammer, but they're responsible for a lot of them. A lot of the Dracula movies that were in Frankenstein movies that were made in the 60s and 70s. Where all the blood looked like red car paint.
Yeah. Well, I lived with it because he loved to do that in real life, too.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So he loved, we always said he walked like an Indian. He could come up behind you so quietly.
Yeah.
And scare you. And he loved Halloween.
Right.
Loved it.
I bet. But I remember, too, on 45, Bill the Fever, and Ernie Boston with the news. And,
right.
So they were the 2 news guys on there. And it wasn't really like the 6 o'clock news or anything like that. It was like every couple of hours or so they would do like maybe I guess it was like a 5 minute just news reel or something like that. Is that
Yeah, yeah. I have a good story about that.
Go ahead.
My girlfriend and I were on his show, and they were going to do a news break. She had fallen asleep right underneath where they do the news break.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And they went ahead and did it. And she wakes up, and there's Jim, motioning for her to stay down, or she was going to wake up yawning on the news. They were very casual. That was Jeff Knapp's daughter that did that. His friend that looked like Abe. That was his daughter that did that. So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
That way to be there.
Yeah. Another thing that was a staple back then on there was the pro wrestling from the Civic Center.
Uh-huh.
There was a lot of that on back then. I remember that pretty much, Saturday afternoons. There was a lot of those, wrestling. And, I think the Baltimore Civic Center was like one of the hubs of, I guess, what was the World Wrestling Federation back then, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of those were on. But I can just remember. I can almost remember by heart, the lineups of the shows they used to get back then. 'Cause it was all, good stuff. I mean, a lot of Gilligan's Island, Get Smart. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Gilligan's Island, Get Smart, Batman, of course. All good stuff back then,
I know. I know. And then he would try to, teach a little bit of morals and stuff in between, and the kids didn't realize they were being taught. They just had fun,
Right, exactly. Oh, so Tracy, you had a couple of other stories for us here about, you've really told us some really great stuff about, your father, Channel 45 and everything here. I know you had another one you wanted to tell me.
Well, this one is a little bit sad, but I will never forget it. My daughter, myself, my mother, and my father had left the dinner theater, and pouring down rain. He had pulled up to get us. There was a woman way across the parking lot, no umbrella, waving, running towards us, and my father drove over to get her. And my mother quick jumped in the back seat, and she got in the front. And she went on and on about how he had made her son's life so special. And eventually it got to, he was the high point of his life, and he had recently died at 22. And it was very sad. But we sat and talked to her probably half an hour. And she really seemed lifted up. He'd signed pictures and, gave her whatever he had, to give, little captaincy mementos. And it was very sad, I remember, but also so sweet.
Yeah. Well, again, that from what you're telling me, about the stories about your father and everything, he was just that kind of a guy. He really did have an impact. It's one thing when you see somebody like that on television that you've watched for years and years and years. You really don't know him in real life, but you oftentimes do think of that person as your friend. And It turns out whenever somebody would meet your father or something like that, it turned out that he was a friend. He was a very friendly person and very kind and warm to people. And I tell you, with him just being gone, and he was just such a beloved part of Baltimore for all those years. Not only for us fans watching, but also very highly respected and beloved by the broadcasting and programming community in television, radio, and everything else in this area here. And definitely, definitely a legend. Definitely one of my favorite people on television. That I can remember growing up too, and then getting to know you and a couple of, a little bit of his family too, very, very nice people, very special group of people that I feel privileged to know. And I do appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories with us, Tracy. Now, I did see that there is a Facebook page, the Captain Chesapeake Fan Club page, and occasionally you do post notices for get-togethers and things like that. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yes, we haven't had one for ages because we were planning one this spring, and of course we've all done nothing this spring.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of buying a 2020, date book, but as soon as all this is up, we usually meet at Waverly, where they have the Captain Chesapeake beer. And it's a lot of fun.
It is.
We just get together and we meet new people. And I've met people that I, still talk to. And once in a while, Jimmy comes with a camera crew, and that's always fun.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. And I bring some of the characters. It's a lot of fun. The staff there are really fun. The owners are really nice.
It is a nice place. I've been to a couple of the events. I think one or two of them over there, and I really enjoyed myself. I enjoyed that beer. It is definitely good beer. It's not just where they took a bottle of crap and put his name on it. I mean, it actually is a legitimately good beer.
Yeah, Roy Fisher, the brewer, took me back and showed me how the brewing works and all. And we were waiting for spring so we could play cornhole, but that didn't happen.
I know.
So hopefully. The page is just Captain Chesapeake's fan page. Nobody even knows who started it. None of my family did, nor does the one guy who was there when I found it. But it's fun. We put our memories, and I love it because it makes them feel closer.
There's somebody that I kind of know was on there one time putting spam on. And I was like, leave it to him. He put up something about selling digital coins or something like that. And I was like, what a schmo. What a schmo. And then they asked him not to do it. And he was like, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, are you really breaking bad with the people that run the Captain Chesapeake page? There's nothing sacred. There's nothing at all sacred to you. You have to.
I know. They just walk the plank and then they're gone.
They just walk the plank. They go into. The one thing I noticed about the show, and I didn't. Maybe you would know it or not. It seemed like there were different. There was different scenery going on, but very often there was like Bethlehem Steel in the background. Did you notice that?
I know part of it was Loch Graven. And I'm sure they did some other places too. But I mean, I was young when they started. Yeah. I do remember Loch Raven. And I remember the very first starter one that you didn't see for long, where they said, "Hey kids, time for Captain C."
Yep.
And we all swam backwards and jumped back out of the pool. I mean, we did it forwards and then jumped from our feet straight out of the pool because we had to do it all backwards. And that one didn't last for long, but that was fun to do. Because then they played it backwards.
Right. But it was neat. Some of the things they would, you would see a lot of the nice scenery from up and down the Chesapeake Bay. I guess he had that as part of his backdrop and everything, everything. So Tracy, thank you again for being with us today. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate, how you're out there keeping your dad's legacy alive, and so many people out there, I guess that I don't have to tell you, just really appreciated, having your father as part of their life growing up and everything.
Well, I appreciate it. It makes them seem closer. Like I said, I appreciate it probably at least as much as they do.
Well, great.
So thank you.
Well, thank you, Tracy, for being here, and thank you all for listening to this another quarantine edition of Fowl Players Radio. We'll see you next time.
Hello, this is John Piet,
Kevin Schmidt,
and Jerry Bozick.
And we're August, a little band from Virginia. You can hear our story, other stories from the legendary Baltimore, D.C. music scene, and much, much more with Michael Spedden on Fowl Players Radio. You can find it at www.fowlplayersradio.com, on YouTube, and wherever you find podcasts online. Keep rocking.
Hi, everybody. Dwight Weems from Gaz the Fun Band, and you're watching and listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hi, this is Bud Becker, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.